Ritika, good evening. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm good too. Okay, this is finally happening. I'm like super excited, nervous, and just like overwhelmed with emotions. How are you?
Same. Super excited. And I've been chatting with my family about this. So it's been like really exciting that your and my family's dinner table conversation is finally like being broadcast live.
That's a good thing, I guess, because this is also the need of an hour, you know. So, hello and welcome everyone. Whoever is listening to this conversation, I have Gitika Talwar with me. I met her on LinkedIn. It was a random conversation that started me trying to understand a practice, and then we synced on a point that therapists need to talk about money. And Gitika is a veteran, I would say. She has been in US for 17 years practicing, and now she's back to India. So she has seen both the sides of the world. Gitika, I'd love to start, with you sharing a bit more on the India and the US version of the mental health industry and how in the 17 years things have perhaps changed. And then we could pick it from there.
Yeah, sure. Because the beautiful thing is also that I had worked in India for 5 years. Like I did my all my education was in India, and then I worked in India for like 4 to 5 years, and then I left for the US. So I had seen the mental health world, and US had provided like a very important refuge for me because I felt concerned about what I would be, how I was going to be treated in the mental health sector, and I had wanted to do a PhD. So I was just like, if hierarchies matter, if titles matter, I want a PhD so that I can come back. And, I wanted to finish my PhD, come back to India and then say, mere paas PhD hai, I have a PhD, like, suno meri baat types. So it's been very, very heartening, I think, to see how much. Okay, of course, it's been heartening on a personal level to have experienced what I did in the US, and I thought also seeing the gaps in US mental health scene as well, and realizing how the gaps that I was seeing in the US mental health scene was actually helping me understand the beauty of Indian mental health practices, plus the gaps in the Indian mental health scene as well. So, at the face of it, one can think like, oh, US has such proper systems, they have insurance, people know about mental health, so many directories, all of that is there. But there are things that are missing. So I think coming back to India right now and seeing the real vibrant conversations about mental health has been so heartening. But money is an issue in the US, money is an issue here, and how we talk about money is different. But at the heart of it, therapists everywhere seem to be fighting to be treated better, to have a livable income, and not feel like they have to really kill themselves to do their jobs. So, yeah, I think I am just so excited about this conversation because it feels like the merging of these two worlds that, I've experienced for the last whatever many years.
I'm like actually super excited to have this conversation and picking up from where you were just mentioning about the whole insurance piece that's existing in the US market and does not exist in the Indian market. I just want to double tap there because I personally I was like planning to start a petition asking IRDAI to mandate insurance companies to put in give like cover mental health services under the health insurance. But now, when I'm looking at the US, what's happening there, and how practitioners are moving out of the whole insurance network. So, just like would love to know and know the other side of that world that looks greener from here.
Sure. So, I mean, I think there is, so I'll say both things. Look to the West for models, but look to yourself for leadership. Because I think seeing US and Europe markets or mental health worlds as leaders is a huge problem because that's a very different ecosystem. India is a very different ecosystem. But you can learn from the mistakes of the West to, if the petition is starting, like I would put like text in it that'll say, this we have already seen, we want it this way. What if India actually became like a leader in okay, let's get away from leadership things because I have a problem with hierarchies too. But the idea is, let's get creative. So I think one of the issues with the insurance systems in the US are that a lot of therapists end up getting paid much less than what their fee might be. So the insurance decides what therapy should be worth. So my fee can be whatever, and insurance will be like, okay, thanks for letting us know, but we are going to pay you per client only this much. So a lot of people say, I don't want to work with insurance because if I try to go with insurance rates, I will have to see 25 people a week to just make a full income. And I would rather just have 10 clients or 15 clients who will pay my full rate, and I'll
Mhm.
just do that. Because the thing is, our work is laborious. It's not like I can create 5 machines and tell them just replicate me and please talk to people. It
Yeah.
can't work like that. Of course, there are ways that people are trying to use technology to, like, at least provide some support. But the fact is, therapy works because of therapeutic alliance, the therapeutic relationship. And if I, as a therapist, I'm really tired because I'm seeing so many people, or I'm feeling really resentful because I know I'm going to get paid like 50% of what my actual fee is, it's going to affect my work because
Yeah.
seen there. So I think the insurance industry works differently, and like an insurance industry in the US, for example, they have these non-disclosure agreements
Yeah.
where you are not allowed to openly discuss how much an insurance company is paying you. So it's very likely that you are getting paid worse than someone else out there because someone else had better negotiating skills. And there are companies that are coming together that are like, we will take care of all the contracting and we will negotiate with the companies on your behalf. But I'm in the process of actually exploring that option right now. And I'm like, despite a company advocating for me, there are still people who are going to, still insurance companies that are saying, we'll pay you 40% of your fee. So, like, मैं 20 साल से क्या घास चरा रही थी. So, like, was I grazing cows for 20 years? That you're going to now tell me you're going to pay me 40% of my therapeutic fees, as though, that's all my skills are worth. So, I think there is this devaluing that happens, and that, so standard of living in the US is what it is. And then if you're still not able to make money that fulfills your standard of fulfills your, like, livable working livable wage, like they call it, we are still dealing with the same issue, only on a different platform you know
Yeah.
so I think that's where. But a lot of times, though, people who get on insurance, that is one way that they are saying that, okay, people will be at least able to, people will be able to access care with me because they don't have to give me money. Their insurance will take care of it, so they don't have to worry about it. So that's been one way that's what I have started realizing, that if I really want to reach people right now, maybe I'll have to take some insurances, the ones who at least pay me, 75% of my fee, and you know figure that out. So yeah.
So this entire conversation that we're having, and since all of this is unscripted, I'm just like listening to you um so much of attentiveness here, that the part where you mentioned, right, that the insurance companies pretty much decide the fees, that how much your therapy would be worth it. And I think the whole, why do you think is that happening? Like, I don't think it's just the insurance companies, in my opinion. Like, today when I'm in India, I speak to on an average 7 8 people who want some or the other form of access to therapy, and the sad part is that they don't want to pay for it. And now I see a lot of practitioners also going ahead and giving pro bonos. I mean, honestly, I am against the whole concept of pro bono and keeping it completely free, because I've been in therapy myself for so many years.
Mm,
The effort that goes in there, I think, if it's not charged, it's not valued enough. So
mm,
I want to
mm,
understand, like, why do, or how do therapists get into this zone of, oh, because mental health care is not that accessible, let me just give it a pro bono. How can they, like,
mm.
jump out of that? I don't know, it's transition, I guess. Jumping is use of a word.
Sure. So, the thing is that I have worked in organizations that were really serving people who needed support and they didn't even know what they were needing was mental health support. They were just, for example, I have worked in organizations in the US where people had fled war zones and moved to the US for safety, basically. They were refugees, they were asylum seekers. And I was working for an organization that was constantly getting referrals from lawyers. And the lawyers were saying this person has gone through so much and they are not able to talk about it. And they need to talk about it because they need to prove their case that they need to be given safety. So people didn't even know what is mental health support. Why do I need it? And my job was to really, in the beginning, teach people how to get their sleep back. So the thing was that the organization was funded, it was a non-profit, it was funded by people and all of that. And we were offering support. So the thing was, the idea of money in that conversation, it wasn't that it'll be awkward. It was like people didn't have any money. They didn't have any money. But now look at this. Such a brilliant non-profits doing, they got awards. That organization has shut down because non-profits are eventually going to be on the whims and fancies of funders.
Yep.
So my whole frustration was, oh, at the heart of it, are people paying for what they value? If you really value accessibility, what are you doing to support the accessibility of people? And why is the burden on therapists? Am I the only one standing around watching this suffering happening? Why am I being asked to, one, take care of people, and I'm supposed to do that on my own body with my own suffering, and you are going to just stand around and watch and slow clap for me for my whatever, my good work. And I'm like, you know what, life does not survive on love and fresh air. I will serve my clients pro bono. I have met pro bono clients who value me, and at the same time, I cannot survive on love and fresh air. Those clients really, I'm telling you, people we used to hear, I work with people from war zones and they were like, yeah, burnout hota hoga. How much burnout you must be experiencing? And I was like, I'll tell you, that year was one of the most profound years of my life. To meet people who've gone through so much and still come out human. I'm like, and they would tell me, they didn't have any money. They would tell me, can I take you out for a meal? Can I buy you coffee? I want to make coffee for you. And I was just like, that tells me you value. At the heart of it, money doesn't tell you value. But when you have money and you refuse to pay for therapy, that tells me how much you value therapy. So I
Exactly.
think that's my issue. That's my issue. That when mental health is stigmatized, when mental health is devalued, when people would rather pay $2,000 for facials or what do men pay for? Yeah, like actually, men pay for facials too. But whatever, like like you're willing to pay for all those things, but when it comes to mental health, suddenly you are like, tangible service kya hai? It's like facial for your mind, or I boss. Like like maybe your family will stop like feeling so like overwhelmed by your anger issues, by your anxiety issues, by your control issues, realizing that you are human and meeting a therapist who listens to you and helps you affirm your humanity. My belief is that job ought to be treated with respect and not like you're just listening to people. Yeah, why should you charge for that? It's like, then go talk to like some random person on the bus. Then why are you talking to me? Don't meet me on top, mate, man.
This just, I think I want to put this out very, I want to say this out loud, I guess. When people say that therapy is all about listening, I'm just like, I always quote this one example from my therapy sessions, wherein I remember uh, my therapist, it was the first week for me with that particular therapist. And she asked me, Divya, how was your week? I said it was a good one, and tada tada started listing everything like a to-do list that I did that week. She goes on to asking me the next question. How did that incident make you feel? And I started like I started like, dividing, like breaking it down into smaller chunks, still not knowing that I'm not even answering a question. And if nothing, I think I thought that I was emotionally aware, but that therapy session, that particular session just changed it all for me, because I
Yeah,
remember, we didn't talk anything else. It was just me crying and sobbing. So I think therapy is beyond someone just listening to you. It's about knowing when to
yeah,
say what, how to say it, and how much to say it. It's just more than,
right,
if it was just listening to, I think you could just rant it to your friends and it would be done. But
right.
I mean, I really advocate for therapy, and because it has given, that profound, it had a profound impact on my life, I would say. So
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's why I think I advocate for therapists also, that you
sure.
guys should not charge, do pro bonos. Go for a sliding scale at max, right?
Mm,
So that you're at least being valued. Because for a country like India, we are sadly used to having things for free. And when it's not,
mm.
we don't really pay for it and then we crib. And when it's given for free, we don't value it. So,
I think like there is a real diversity of opinion there too. And I think that's the challenge in India, or even in the US, for example, that that there are more. So I would say that yes, there are some systems in place that are talking about accessibility of mental health services as a social justice issue. Like you wouldn't ever tell someone that you can't. Ideally, nobody should be prevented from access to a doctor because it's life and death, and people don't realize that mental health issues are also life and death, so that access is needed. And the thing is that we sometimes measure access based on the people with the most limited circumstances, but then we apply it to the people who have more resources. So so I wouldn't say don't do pro bono. I would say do what you think is working for you, and at the same time I very strongly believe that as therapists, as not just therapists, I think anybody in a caring profession, DEI professionals, healers, therapists, we have to offer from a place of abundance. We don't give people from our cup. We don't give people from a full cup. We give people from our overflow. I have enough. I am so energetic and I have energy to offer. Fine. So the thing is, when you are like I have known therapists who have really, really difficult circumstances and they like rely on, in the US, they have something called coupons, food banks, where you
hmm,
can get benefits from the government. If you don't have enough income, you can, ask the government to help you buy your food. And I know therapists who do that. And so there is that part of me that feels so heartbroken that folks are sometimes giving so much from a place of, because it's it's this lifelong mission to serve. But when you are giving, depleting yourself, you are actually in the long term going to not be around because it's not sustainable. So the people who are offering pro bono, it's my sincere hope that they're offering it from a place of abundance, not offering from a rescue fantasy, not operating from a guilt. I should
yeah.
be doing this. And I
Shame,
think
guilt.
that's where my conversation about money comes in. That I'm like, okay, I'm going to assume that everybody who's tuning into this conversation, because you'll realize this about me very quickly. I will not give you a lot of practical solutions. Like, the joke is, questions to me are free, answers cost money. So I'll give you a lot of questions. You can come up with a lot of questions, but for answers, I have to like talk to you and charge you. So, but the thing is, my questions are really like, ask yourself how much shame, guilt is operating. I'm assuming you have all your values in the right place. You care, you want to do good work, and ask yourself, is it shame, is it guilt that tells you sliding scale to karna hi chahiye yaar, like I have to do it? Yes, you will do it. Make that your goal. I want to earn enough so that when somebody needs a session fee at a lower price, I'll be like, of course, huh, why not? And I have done that. I have, it's not even been like a, I'll have to do the math, yeah, math ho jayega, because so ensure, and like one of the things, for example, and I really want to give a shout out to Tanmay Goswami, mental health journalist, uh, founder, author, like brilliant man all around. He writes this newsletter called Sanity, and of course, thanks for the link up there. Uh, and I was joking with him, like, are you listening into the conversations I'm having with people? Because Divya and I speak about money, and a few days later, Tanmay says, I'm doing a series on therapists and money, and I was like, WhatsApp conversations are being broadcast. Anyway, so he's doing this series on therapists and money. And I was just so struck by just that level of insight that he was sharing, that was so reflective of what we've been experiencing in these conversations about money. That how do we actually support people uh, without being guilted about wanting to prioritize our income first, in a livable wage first. And also a lot of the idea of every conversation about money, somewhere like, and this happened to me as I was setting up my enterprise, that I was like, how will I make sure it's affordable for everybody? And then my business director, like business director being someone who's a member of my family, and I elevated him to business director because he's very good at saying no to things, and I'm like, yes, I say yes to everything, you say no to something, thank you. So he asked me, how come you're thinking first about accessibility when you have to figure out how you'll sustain long enough for people to even come to you? You know, you have to keep your business going for long enough. So you want to be sustainable for just 1 year, or you want to be around for a while? So when Tanmay's first piece, Insanity, where he interviewed these amazing therapists, I've interacted with them. There's Mukti Shah, there's Suvrita, and I'm so sorry, I'm forgetting the names of other people, but I was so struck by something that Mukti said in that piece about, when you're talking about like, first, like just not thinking about livable wages, you're also somewhere talking from a place of privilege, like as though you don't need an income. And who out here does not need an income? So then recognize na, that you're coming from a place of privilege. So what about the therapists who don't have that? Are you just saying that therapists should get into this field only if they have like another income? So then you are making it more and more likely that people who've come from historically marginalized communities, who may have intergenerational poverty challenges, who might be among the first people in their family to be going to a postgraduate degree and doing a job like this, you're basically Xing out all those people now, when you're making it seem like, think about accessibility before you think about anything else. I'm like, excuse me, and also like one of the things, I was really glad even Tanmay pointed it out, that our field is dominated by women. How much is this devaluing of mental health services also coming from just that? Women, they should keep busy, extra job, like, and I have had people of my generation with a PhD in other fields tell me, this job is good, yeah. You just have to talk to people. And I'm like, geez, man, दोनों ने PhD किया है. And your PhD is rocket science, and my PhD is though I don't know what. So I was like, oh, is this? And like Tanmay puts it, right? It's the feminization of the field. And when something is feminine, it's assumed like,
It's free, it's not valued.
yeah. So our caregiving roles are like, ये तो करना ही है.
Hmm.
You have to do this.
This whole piece, the whole feminine part into the mental health thing. I was having a conversation with my mom on this topic, that mom, I'm going live on this topic, and she's like, she just started having a discussion with me, and she brought out this point so beautifully that, Divya, do you realize 99% of the practitioners in this field are women? Because women by nature take up the whole role of caregiving, and then since society has never really valued them, be it caregiving to the family, to the society, anyone, they hesitate in asking for money. They
Right.
hesitate in asking. So I was like, but they should not hesitate, is my point. I have worked as a freelancer before I moved on to building something today. And one thing that I did try and make it into the practice, I didn't come from a place of privilege, if anyone thinks that. But I knew that if I want to set the space right for me, I will have to charge in advance. And I started doing that. I did have a lot of roadblocks. I'm not comparing my profession, of course, to yours, but what I'm saying is that
Sure.
there needs to be some standard ki yaar, matlab, you know,
Right.
I think practitioners and especially therapists, everyone needs to realize that you have food to put on your table, you have bills to pay, and to make
Right.
sure that you have roof over your head, you need money. We live in a capitalistic society. So I
Yeah.
think don't think the barter system can work anymore. And even if it works, it can just, I don't know if it can work today. And I think that's why money is actually extremely needed and should not be the, you know, in my opinion, something a hush hush topic. Because
Fully.
I've seen actually a lot of practitioners, when I'm speaking with them and when I ask them, like, what's a ballpark figure that you charge? They're like, I can do for free also. And these are quite experienced ones.
Oh, okay.
These are like quite experienced ones. The new ones, though, they will not even say, I can do it for free. They'll just say, all my slots are free. That just goes to the next level. So this
Oh,
this actually, is it makes me go bonkers and it hurts me at the same time. I want to
sure.
I want to understand from you. So someone who's just getting started into this space, right? They've completed their masters in India, then it's usually something they can start practicing as a counseling psychologist, right? I think they
Right.
all of them are usually really reluctant and hesitant, not confident on their skills. So they're like, कि हम लोग pro bono ही कर लेंगे, right? But then where to draw that line of pro bono and when to start charging? Because this is a field that is a ever learning and ever evolving field. So there's like
Sure.
nothing that you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think somewhere I think that's the challenge also, right? In the Indian context, that, um, so what happens in the US quite a bit is that people, after they finish their degrees, so like master's degrees, usually after you finish your master's degree, you're required to be under supervision for 3 years. And only after that, you're allowed to sit for exams that will grant you your license. So you can't be an independent clinician for those 3 years after your master's. So a lot of people okay, they work in private practice, but then they have a supervisor who actually reads their notes, signs on their notes. So the supervisor is also equally responsible. So a lot of times the therapists, these early career therapists will say, you are, and I really, really have seen such amazing clinicians who are supervisors, who are under supervision, where I really feel like the client is getting the benefit of two therapists. One you meet, and one come, one is the person who is overseeing the work. So you get to charge, yeah, for that, because you're going to pay the supervisor income,
Yeah.
and you are getting the insights of two people. And a lot of people also work in organizations that are providing mental health services. And then for 3 years, your supervision is included in your job. So, so then you're saving supervision money, but then your trade off is you're working in an organization and all of that. So the thing is, from the get go, there is an understanding that my coming here with my training, with my passion, with my interest, I am already better than some stranger you're meeting on the bus. Sometimes, of course, strangers on the bus. I've had some great conversations with a lot of strangers on the bus. So I'm not dissing strangers on the bus, but you'll have to go to the same bus every week and hope they're there. So therapists, you can trust they will be there. Google link milega tumhe. So that sort of thing. So my whole thing is look at the devaluing that's happening, right? Is what I'm offering worth anything? I'm still in training. You're in training, which is why you're offering a uh, lower end of the fee scale if you want, and you can still, so it's a matter of you're devaluing, and then also, yeah, like what we were talking about from a feminine perspective, that we are in caregiving roles, and there is a part of us that feels really guilty but people are coming to me for help and I'm like charging them and all of that. And it's like, yeah, therapy is a job. It's a very personal job. It's a very intimate job, but it is also a job. And which is why, like, somewhere, having to actually, in some way, also recognizing that therapy is a job. So you are not a therapist. You play that role during your work life. You are more than a therapist. So, somewhere it's like therapy is a job. I wouldn't tell my boss, I'm new, yeah, you don't have to pay me. I don't know if people do that. Don't do it, okay?
No one does
Don't
that.
take us.
That's the
Yeah,
sad part to the whole thing. When I say sad part, not that other people don't do it. The fact that when anyone today graduates from their undergrad or their masters and they don't have industrial skills, they're still absorbed by the companies and they're paid a decent amount that
right,
makes it livable for them, right? So I wonder,
right.
like, I mean, I speak to a lot of students also, and what they say is, कि यार अभी तो ना we have to like spend for this. They're in their masters. They're like, अभी हमको internship के लिए pay करना पड़ेगा. I'm like, this is just the next level thing that happens here,
I
and
don't understand it. No, this I've heard about this. Like I'm really like I still have to meet the people who are doing this because I'm like, why are students paying for an internship? What
yeah,
kind of like modern day like bonded labor system is this? That that you
it
are
just
not paying them and they're paying you.
I
Excuse
think
me.
there's a lot of it is like I think just so much I can't get that right word, but it's just so inherited in us ki we will not, us meaning the practitioners and the therapists, that okay, this is not that financially rewarding job. It,
That's
I
so sad.
believe, is not because the narrative is not changing. I think
Yeah.
the start has to happen from that narrative changing.
Right.
And because I have a lot of friends and acquaintances who were like, bro, to therapy mein therapy. So a lot of times, therapy gets overwhelming for some sessions are quite overwhelming. And like, bro, we're just in therapy, you should be always feeling better. I'm like, no, that's not how this works. They're like, but you're
Yeah.
paying them. I'm like, I'm paying them to help me process my emotions.
So people go to surgery and then वो जो aftercare होता है, then they tell the surgeon, give me my money back because बहुत दर्द हो रहा है मुझे. Like, I mean, how does it work? Like, so I mean, it's a bit like that. That I mean, of course, like part of my job is, so this is one thing that I love doing. I have worked in a college counseling center where I was working with clients for a very brief amount of time because the student community is fluid and we also needed to make sure that our center was always open to receiving new clients. So if everybody got into long term care with us, our center would have to close its doors and just focus on clients we have, and new clients wouldn't be able to enter. So we had to keep a brief therapy model. So what was happening in the process was that I was working with a lot of students for a few sessions, and I would then be helping them figure out what kind of a therapist, what kind of qualities would work for them. So then I ended up like, guiding people on like, okay, this is how you find a therapist. This is let's come up with a paragraph that you will write for your for a person, and then send the same paragraph out to like therapists who meet the following criteria. I used to just love doing that. So the thing was, in the process, I was really getting to see the diversity of therapy out there, the diversity of therapeutic styles out there. And I'm like, we need to find a way to continue to like support people in connecting with the right therapist and then actually paying for that. And part of my job was also helping people understand when to realize therapy is not working and when to realize that this is the part of therapy that is painful, and bring this up with your therapist that every time I leave from your session, I'm just so overwhelmed, I can't do anything else. How do I make sense of this? How do I do this? And how do I like navigate this? And sometimes it is also about like figuring out what you have some expertise about your own system. So it is a bit of asking for what you need. So I used to like, guide people on how to do that. So the thing is, when therapy itself is so complicated sometimes, when you mix in mental health stigma, mental health devaluing, and all of that, my fear is that I could end up, money ends up playing like a clinical role in the relationship as well. So, and I think this is a very concrete point that I want to make to all the therapists out there. How you deal with money is a therapeutic process. How much you are giving in to the client saying, therapy is not as important as my trip to Japan. I would rather pay for that than pay for my session fee. And it's like, that's meaningful. I'm not going to judge the client for making this choice, but that is meaningful clinical material right there. And every time you tell the client, oh, okay, if you want more sessions, but the session fee is too much, we'll just reduce the session fee without the client asking, there is the risk again that you're saying, if you want more therapy, I'll reduce the price. So it's like, there is something going on there. And as I have transitioned from working in a salaried position where I never had to talk about money with clients, and now I have come into a role where I have to talk about money with clients, I can see how like it impacts the relationship. We have 60 minutes to have a session, and 5 minutes are spent on also addressing like बैलेंस रह गया है क्या हो रहा है so like oh yeah sorry I forgot okay that's fine but let me know what's going on. So it's a bit of understanding, and also like the clinical material that's also coming in when you are sharing with a client that I can okay reduce your session fee and all of that. Is the client going to end up feeling so indebted to you that they are not then they are afraid of telling you when something's going wrong, because then they're like, she's anyway done so much for me, now I can't tell her, I can't also complain, so I have to just take whatever it is. And also like there is this woman, Tiffany McLean, I will put her name in the chat in case folks want to like share that broadly. Tiffany McLean, where she talks about therapists make bank. She talks a lot about therapists need to stop apologizing for wanting to make a livable wage, and she's like, therapists need to like, please make money, even if it is that I want to work only these many hours of the day and I want to go on a vacation for this much time and everything. You have the right to have the life you want, and all of that. So one of the things that she talks about was when she was going to a therapist and he offered to like slide his fee down very low. She says I was very grateful to him, and then finally when I was able to pay his full price, that's when I also allowed myself to tell him when things were not working. She says he couldn't take it because he was so used to me being so grateful to him that now he was suddenly like, what? Like now you're a full paying customer and he's talking like one. So it's a little bit of course there is this challenge of, you also don't want clients to ever feel like I pay you so I can treat you however I want. No, you shouldn't treat anybody poorly, no matter what job they do for you. And if you are used to paying the people you hire poorly and you're going to treat me poorly because you've paid me, this is not clinical work. This is you again doing some really horrible things in your life. So I can support you through that, but you're not going to treat me like trash while we do that. So I think it's a bit of that how is money entering the clinical equation and what is it doing to the therapeutic relationship. So also be mindful about that when you're promoting access to care. Be mindful about what kind of care, how is that care being impacted by money, for sure.
This, I'm loving like how we've just gone above and beyond just money aspect to things, and how you touched upon a lot of other aspects in terms of helping people find the right therapist. I think that's also one of the major issues that are existing. I'll come back to the money aspect of things. And so I did this one meetup, and I asked the students, most of them were students, master students, and a couple of practitioners, seasoned practitioners, I'd say. I asked them, like, how do you decide on your charges? Right? The first session that you are ever going to take, how do you decide upon it? And the answers, I didn't have any answer. So I want to ask you this question, like, how is it that I say if I'm a student, I am just graduating, a fresh graduate. What are the certain parameters I could look at while setting up my fees? Because I'm still exploring. I don't have the business side of knowledge as a psychologist. So how do I go about setting that initial fees so that I
Right.
start understand? Because I think the whole valuing part that you were talking about, Gitika, it also stems from the fact that boundaries, when you don't set up boundaries, that's when the breach happens. And a part of it is also because you chose to just tell the client ki, "ठीक है, my time is all free for you."
Yeah, I'm always there.
Yeah, I
Sure,
guess.
sure. And also, like, that's what, right? Like, there is a value that there is a beauty to that value too, that I really want to support people. And also, it's like you need to remember that you are part of people. If you care about humanity, please remember you're part of humanity. You get to care for yourself. So I think a lot of times setting fees is something that I am like, I'm in the throes of, which is why I like really encourage people to look up people like Suvrita on LinkedIn, Mukti Shah on LinkedIn, and also other providers from all over the West. If folks are getting like training from people from the West, please look at work that people at West, especially people of color, especially Black therapists, especially Native therapists, especially people of color therapists in the West. Look at the work they're doing to talk about all of these things. A lot of their therapeutic work, as well, a lot of their business practices are discussing things that are extremely relevant to the Indian context. So when it comes to setting fees, for example, one of the things to keep in mind, and I'm learning all, okay, we are all in the school together, okay, but that's what people like. The other day somebody asked me, how much when you're paying for your phone, how much does that cost you? So think about that. Think about all your expenses in the day, in the week. How much does it cost you? So doesn't it at least make sense that you earn double of your expenses? Our salaries are set up like that, no? So it's like, okay, if these are your expenses because of where you live, because of where you eat, and you want to eat food, no, you need a house over your head. So it's like, okay, figure out what your expenses are, and then see just how much do you want to work, how many clients do you think you can see and still not be upset at the end of the day. Because I'll be honest, if I talk to more than 5 new people in a day, 4 is actually my max, 5 I can push it. If I talk to more than 4 to 5 people a day, in the evening I will cry because I wasn't getting water. I will cry for the randomest things because I'm emotionally spent. So I had to realize मेरा capacity यही है. I can't talk to more than 4 new people in a day. So I was like, okay, how much do I want to work? Okay, so I want to see only these many clients in a week. These are my expenses. Now do the math and then double it. And like I've had practitioners say, double it, and if you feel uncomfortable, set that price. So I'm like, oh God, no. So I was like, no. So I was like, set that price. And then I was like, and so then it is a bit of sitting with that. Going like, okay, I'll set that price. And over time, figuring out how do I then let the market tell me. And you also have to do the right entrepreneur practices. Like just recently, I was crying on LinkedIn about like I have to get on insurance panel after all. People are not paying my full fee, this and that. And one of my friends from grad school reached out and said, "You want to talk?" And I was like, "Yes." And she said, "Gitika, one of the most important things was realizing that I needed to think like a business owner.
Yeah.
We were taught to be therapists and we were made to seem like, I don't know, like the earth is just going to like capitalism will suddenly end and therapists will just get money in their bank just because they're good people." So I don't know, like I don't know what they were doing. They had training, like nobody taught us about money. So she's like, you have to learn from business folks. And at the same time, there are a lot of business folks who live by great values. My first marketing course, when I started setting up my business, was an anti oppressive marketing course by Natalia Sanyal. I will put her name in the chat as well. Uh, Anti oppressive marketing. And I love her work because she's like, marketing doesn't have to be sleazy. It is. You're sharing your gifts with the world. You're letting people know there is a gift. So why you want to hide? Don't you want to tell people I have something to offer you? And don't you want to make sure that you can offer that for a long time? So then, when I come to the questions that I'm seeing in the chat, like how can therapists navigate conversations about raising their rates with existing clients? There is absolutely factoring in every year I am going to increase my fees by a certain amount. That is going to happen every year. So how do we remind people, okay, 3 months in advance or whatever, like, oh, the year is going to shift and this is how much I'm going to charge. And this is where again, when you're in insurance panels, it gets a little complicated because the conversation with insurance companies, I want to change raise my rates, and they're like, thanks for letting us know.
We won't entertain you.
Suggestion box is connected to the shredder. Put it. So, and how can therapists communicate their value to clients who are hesitant about costs? It is a bit of, I think, naming that what are you noticing that the folks are experiencing, and it is a bit of naming that you are. I think we have it's a bit of both. It's a bit of empathizing with clients. We don't, I mean, I think that's the hard thing about therapy sometimes, that you don't want to dismiss a client's concerns. And it's also okay to name that it's hard for you to address all their needs. Part of therapy is supporting folks in naming their needs, and part of therapy is supporting folks in recognizing don't ask for apples from an orange tree. So, it's like you need another answer, ask another girl. Like, so it's a bit of, I noticed that. I recognize that the cost is a barrier for you. And I'm wondering, in the light of this, whether it might be more helpful if you work with a provider who might have a different fee scale and all of that. And one option is also for us to figure out whether there are ways that we could work. So maybe we meet fewer times in the month, and then you do more homework between sessions. So part of our work will be that you will take on more responsibility between sessions. So that's one way to work if you'd like to work with me in particular. So it's a bit of that. And it's a bit of sometimes recognizing that, if there's a part of you that is noticing that this person's needs are also coming from a place that you're just like, okay, I can see the importance of this work, and I'm among the only providers who's doing this work and they're needing it. So it is a bit of also recognizing how about we do this work for 3 months or whatever, you set a time frame, and then we revisit this. We might need to revisit the fee conversation in 3 months, because I would want to keep checking. Because also, what happens is that sometimes people's financial status changes, and then it becomes a little awkward for the therapist. That, okay, you have a job now. Why are we still on the fee that is like you're jobless. So I think it's a bit of, again, see, this is clinical material. When the therapist starts feeling exploited, it's a very hard position to be in, and you also don't want your clients to feel exploited. So I am going to also name this resource out there. It's called Green Bottle. It's about sliding scale. I'd shared that resource earlier. I can't remember the exact name of the, oh yeah, read about sliding scale, creative ways of setting fees, because the authors here, again, since we love things from the West, authors here have done a beautiful job of asking clients to self reflect on how much can you pay for therapy. Like, because one of the research studies that folks have done about money, and this was actually playing out in a therapist WhatsApp group I'm on, people who have more money are more guarded, and the people who have less are likely to give more. And the research continues to show a lot, and you'll see that, right? Like, at least in the US, we talk a lot about why do the wealthy people get so many tax breaks? Because the rich love hoarding their money. So you will see, like I was telling you, right? My clients who couldn't pay anything, I never felt like I was being exploited, because I could see how much they cared for me and how much they cared for the work. So people can pay me $5,000 and treat me like whatever. And people who paid me nothing, like like they warmed my heart every day. So it's not about money. It's about, do you care for the work we're doing, and do you, and money is a way that we offer care also. I care for you and you care for me by paying my fee.
It's a two-way street, I think, and it's time that everyone, I think it's not just a responsibility, I guess, of one stakeholder. In this conversation, I've realized that piece that, while I'm always saying and advocating to the fact that therapists should not give pro bono, but I'm now realizing that I think this is a multi-stakeholder problem, and I guess not just, it can't be solved by one person or one community, right?
Right.
So this, I think, it has to come together, and instead of just saying that we're making it. But one thing I want to point out though is that what I genuinely, I think, I want to call out is that a lot of organizations have gone on to exploiting practitioners in the name of giving accessibility and affordable therapy. If you give, I'm not saying don't give, because a lot of people in India today don't have access or that much of
Fully.
resources, but I think you
Fully.
need to know where to draw that line so that people who can pay you enough so that you can run your operations, and the practitioner is also valued for their time. I think
Absolutely.
this
Absolutely.
this whole thing like does make me go bonker. And with that, I have one question, Gitika, from the
Yeah.
audience. How does one measure mental health online? What framework do you suggest?
Oh, I am such a big fan of this program that has not yet come to India, and maybe I'm just putting this intention out in the universe. I want to become a trainer in this program. It's called
Mhm.
Feedback Informed Care. Scott Miller, I'm going to put his name in. This man is brilliant. Like, I adore him. Feedback Informed Treatment. And it can be done digitally. The scales can be administered digitally. It's a simple 4-question scale. And then the flip side of it is a 4-question therapeutic alliance check. So we would measure, in the beginning of the session, I would ask people, how are you doing in these different areas of your life? And because there are no numbers, they're only marking things on a line. Towards the right is you're doing well, towards the left is if you're not feeling that well. And then I had to measure, and digitally it measures it for you. So I would measure based on where they were marking on the scale. So the thing was, I was, and also there's a way to interpret this whole thing. It was happening so simply, and because people didn't know the exact number, they couldn't go like, okay, last time it was 20, I think this time it's 23. They didn't always know. So the thing was that people were actually able to genuinely tell me, how am I feeling in these different areas of my life.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm feeling great. Socially, everything is, khalas, like everything is terrible. So it's like, okay, so your mental health right now is being impacted by something in the social
Some
economy.
element.
So it was, I loved that the framework, and it's an entire model of care that is actually inviting feedback from the client, because you recognize that the client is also an expert about their life, and
Yeah.
you are a mental health expert. So you are actually collaborating in care. So the thing is that I bring all my mental health stuff, and then we figure out a way that, hey, is this matching with what you're needing? So you will be telling me that. And over time, it is like this the Scott Miller ORS model. It's the outcome rating scale. It will let me tell you, if after 5 sessions people's scores are not improving, it means something needs to change. And you actually pointedly invite the client to share with you, what do you think is needing to change right now? Do you have a sense? It could be that my style of therapy doesn't work. It could be that you might be needing medication. It could be that you also, there's this chaotic thing going on in your life. No amount of therapy is going to help you adapt to your oppression. So we will have to like figure out something different.
Something. Yeah.
So I am a big fan of that measurement model. And just a quick question about just topic of money in group therapy settings. I think having like a standard group therapy fee, and also it's again, I use the sliding scale model, that this is the range. You can pay anywhere between these two numbers. And in the US, the honor system is valued. Like folks can expect an honor system that, hey, you decide where on the scale you want to pay, and the therapist is like, I'm not going to ask you questions about why you chose that end, I'm just giving you the range. And
It's like a
people actually,
pay as you wish.
pardon me.
It's pay as you wish in a
Right.
range types,
Yeah.
right?
Right. So you basically decide how many maximum number of group participants will you have, and how many members in the group, and what is the total amount that you'd ideally like to earn in the group, minimum, maximum, and assume if everybody pays you just the minimum, will it still be viable? So set your fees like that, and then everything else is bonus. And remember, your bonus today is going to support you in famine days tomorrow, because the uh, our pay goes up and down as entrepreneurs. So keeping that in mind. I also noticed that there was a live question. I don't know if you have time for it, but
Yeah,
I
I
just
just took it up. This, how
oh,
does one measure
oh,
mental health online? Yes.
yeah. So that's
This does, I mean, as we're coming to an end of this whole conversation, I wanna ask you one, I guess, a final question. This conversation is, of course, a never-ending conversation between the two of us.
you and me to never stop talking anyway. So
Yeah, that's why I was like, yeah, I think the viewers also will be thinking these guys are just going on talking amongst themselves. So, folks, if you have any questions, put them in the comments while we are here for the next couple of minutes. And by the time we get questions from them, I am going to ask you one question, Gitika. So, you moved from being a salaried practitioner to now, being an entrepreneur plus a practitioner, right?
right.
How have you been dealing with that transition in your relationship with money? How have you been dealing? Yeah, I think that's the very simplest question I have.
Yeah, I think it's been by honoring my time and energy more, recognizing I have to be my own good boss. Nobody's going to come out to protect me now. There is no organization policy that I can point to and go like, no, I am the boss. So I think I'm treating myself the way I would treat any future employee if I ever had one. So I think it's really that relationship with money has now become one of also recognizing that nobody else gets to decide whether what I expect in terms of reciprocity. So if I am offering energy and time, I would want to not feel depleted at the end of it. I don't think that's a fair expectation from anybody. There are things that I'm super passionate about and that I can address in 15 minutes and not feel like, oh, I didn't get paid for this, it's bad. It's fine. But if I had to spend 2 hours on something that I'm passionate about but not get paid for it, I'm not okay with it. So I think like one of the things that happened, right? Like a lot of people have started reaching out to me asking about careers in the US and everything. So sometimes it used to be like, hey, can we connect? And I was like, yeah, sure. And the next thing I know, I'm like in a 45-minute conversation about like mental health careers in the US. And I was like, man, like I need to like charge for this. Because I mean, I love the topic, but I'm like, I have like a business to run. So I'm like, if this is what people want, fine. This is what I'm going to sell. So, so I think that's been my relationship with money. I'm like, money, passion come together now.
Is it safe to say that it's still while in this transition you're like still exploring and defining, or I'd say redefining your equation with money?
Every day. Every day. Fully. Yeah. Like anytime people ask me, so how much do you charge for X? Hmm. Let's set up a meeting. By that time, I will know. So I'm kidding. I have figured out what my price needs to be and like my fee and everything. But every day, I think I have nuances to how I'll communicate my fee. How will I raise my fee over time? And like, there's this beautiful and very important question in the chat about how do I effectively communicate cancellation no show policies. I don't know if there's a culture of like having people do paperwork when they start meeting you, but have it in writing. This is my cancellation policy. If you don't give me 24 hours notice, uh, I will bill you. There is also like, and also depends on whether you have the option of, that's why I think what you were saying, Divya, about like take the money in advance. And if you give me less than 24 hours notice, then it's gone. The other thing is that sometimes I've offered people like very clear, look, if you have to cancel last minute because things happen, I get it. You have one free pass for 6 months. Once I will maaf karo, but the next time I will charge you fully. Sometimes also I've been more comfortable with saying if you reschedule within the same week because you had like an emergency, if you reschedule within the same week, then it's fine, like within the next 7 days basically. But sometimes if my schedule was really busy, then I was just like, that might not work, which is why the one free pass for 6 months. You can use that now or you can use it in the future. So you decide. Shall I charge you now or later? So again, it is how do I build a relationship where I can be more honest about money with clients, treat them like the adults that they are, and clients also please expect to be treated like an adult. We are talking about money and we are two human beings. So let's do this.
Interesting. This I'll just add on to this point, Gitika, that you were talking about, right? I honestly, I mean, in my journey so far with therapy, been to almost 6, 7 therapists now, like different phases of life, and
Right.
it's like you outgrow, I guess, your relation with a therapist after a point, right? When you're
Of
transitioning into a
course.
different
Of
phase of
course.
life. Well, it was one thing, I think, that was more of my conscious, that I never really did those things. But it was also the fact that I was never really communicate. Like, if I had a panic attack and I could not show up for the therapy session, of course, that I can't be telling them in that minute, but they never really billed me for it either. Like, now in introspection, I'm like, they should have, I guess, charged me after a point just because I am not doing okay. So, point is that okay, even if you don't want to charge me for the medical emergency piece, but I think that this cancellation and the no show, I think this system still is not that stringently followed in India per se.
Sure.
Which I
Sure.
I, I wanna like say this out
Yeah.
to all the practitioners.
One thing I forgot to mention is that I think our relationship with money is particularly, there is something about, I'm so amazed that I completely have forgotten to talk about this thing that's actually been on my mind. So if there are any psychoanalysts in the room, please like notice that I forgot to talk about this one thing that's been on my mind for so long. our relationship with money in India is particularly interesting because I feel like the amount of scams talking about exploitation, so and so took my money and didn't give me anything, and all of that, that narrative is so much alive for me all the time. So being seen as some kind of a scam artist is like a constant fear for me. That people will think like, just because she's gone to the US, I don't even know if she went to the US. And I'm like, "Mera LinkedIn profile dekho. I've been in the US." So, but that fear of, oh, why is she charging so much? What does she even do really? And it's like you go to the session and you feel heard, and it's like, what she did for 5,000, or whatever. So I think there is a particular relationship that we have with money. There's a lot of mistrust. And I'm planning to write like a piece about it on, can we decolonize money? Money was at the heart of it a means of exchange, no? Like there was a time people would give you milk and you would give them grains. Now I get grains from big basket, so I'll give you money. And you buy grains yourself. Money was meant to be just a medium of exchange, right?
Thing. Yeah.
But it has been influenced by a lot of messages. So there's a lot of exploitation, and I have to call out, like, I am someone who's really committed to decolonial liberatory practices. So for me, talking about money has felt particularly difficult because I have felt like आगे पीछे तो I'm always like complaining about capitalism, but I am also charging. So I'm like, because I live in capitalism. What to do? That is why I'm complaining. No. Can we live in a world where capitalism doesn't not apply? Do you fight with Netflix about capitalism? Hey, you should give us content for free, but you have to tell me this because I'm standing here listening. So my whole thing was that how do I decolonize and liberate my practice when I also live in this world where I need to like protect myself? And what face do I show supervisees I meet, people I train in the future? If I say I don't charge anything, but you can charge. So how am I then going to model to them all of that? So for me, somewhere it is also like about talking about what did colonization do to us, where we felt like labor can be extracted from people without giving them anything in return. Exploitation is okay. So there is this constant fear we have that someone's going to take my money and run away with it. So as therapists, we don't want to ever be seen as people who needed anything. I'm doing this because I care, and I don't ever want this to get tainted. So I'm reminded of like a very short thing. I don't know if it can be a short thing, but I'm reminded of this one time my mother and I were shopping, and we were buying something, and my mother was bargaining with the person, and she got very frustrated finally, and she said, "Fine," and she gave him money, and like she got frustrated and gave it to him. He took the money and he holds it. He says, "Ye Lakshmi hai. This is Lakshmi. You can insult me. Don't insult her." And man, I was like, whoa, this stuff got real serious. And I remember having this moment of we see Lakshmi everywhere, and we have this reverence for abundance. But when it comes to actually like treating her with respect and treating the people who earn her with an honest means of work, actually sharing that we are doing an exchange of abundance here, that people have that over time it has been tainted. I'm not saying people have tainted it. I think a lot of circumstances have come together. So it's almost like how do we as a therapist community reclaim the sanctity of money? Money is beautiful. Money gets us things. Money feeds children. And I like for one of the things like I have shared with my partner about, I realize I have donated to so many important causes over the years. And when I had a salary, I could donate with ease. And
Yeah.
now I just hate holding back because I'm like, I don't have a salary. So I said, I actually want a good income so that when I feel like I want to donate to something, I don't want to think about, oh, but I, I, I don't know. So I'm like, one of the values I have in my life is, yeah, I practice generosity. It's a part of my spiritual practice. And I'm like, I'm very scared of not having enough money to, support myself plus the people I care about. So I think that's, uh, yeah, I think that's just, it was supposed to be a short story, but who knows where I went.
That's okay. I love listening to your stories, and I genuinely love listening to your stories. And when I speak to a lot of other practitioners, it just gives me insights into things that probably no other means of media can give me. And so, if I had to now summarize this for our viewers, of what we talked about, I think the first step to changing about your relationship with money is to start accepting that what you are doing as it's a profession, and it's not the whole of you, right? The
Right.
therapist that you are, it's a part of your larger universe, I would say. So I think that's where it should start first, accepting, and then moving on to, I think it's going to be transitional phase for whoever is moving into a private practice. But I think first start internalizing the fact that it's okay to charge money. And I'm not saying go charge 10,000 to someone. You charge what you know, the value you bring to the table. But the point is that internalize and accept that I need money because I live in a capitalistic society. And I guess that shame, that guilt, and so this something that has helped me is I also used to be very hesitant to talk about money or any of those things. But then I think my spiritual journey taught me that become comfortable with it. The more you're uncomfortable with such things, no, the more it will run away. Just get comfortable and start accepting it, and it'll just get really better for you. So yes, uh, that's a summary from my side. So any last words, Gitika, that you would like to share with the viewers?
Yeah, I think my last words will probably be just that two things, like, if there is one personal attitude shift that I will invite you to do for yourself and others is to stop judging people for their fees, because there's a lot of shaming and guilting that goes on within the therapist community, leave alone the broader society. So that whole log kya kahenge, like what will people say, comes not only from society, it comes from our own therapist community. And I'm saying, please stop shaming and guilting people for wanting an honest, livable wage, and let people decide what they wish to charge. And this does not take away from naming ethical practices. Money and ethics don't always have to be in like fight. So I think that's an attitudinal shift that I would really, really request. And I would also encourage people to reflect on their own relationship with money. What is their own shame, trauma around money? What is the money mindset that you're bringing to the room? And how is that impacting your clinical work? Definitely. And I also really want to remind people about offering from a place of abundance. Take care of yourself. Remember that you're a part of the community that you serve. One of the things that colonization has done to us is that it has separated us, and we borrow from the West and everything, and there is this separation between the therapist and the client, when actually we are all part of the same community. So when you take care of yourself, you're taking care of the community, because you're a precious resource. You need to be around for a long time. So treat yourself like the precious resource that you are. And just remember that money is one way, there are many other ways. So somewhere it's also just that. I would love for folks to, also just, yeah, I think take care of yourself. It's a rough world out there. Be kind. So that's that.
Thank you so much, Gitika, for all of this conversation, and starting this whole unscripted series with you was, I think, the best decision I made in my journey. Here. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you to everyone who was listening, and or probably will be listening to this, after the live is over. Thank you to everyone, and I think it's time we start. Like, regardless you're a therapist or not, start accepting that
Mhm.
having the need for money. I'm not talking
Yeah,
about greed. I'm talking about the need for money. There's a thin line between the need and the greed. Um, and just recognize that, and then don't be feeling ashamed of needing money, because you need money to fill your stomach,
totally.
right? So I guess that's my 2 cents. And to the therapists, you are the roots of the society, and money is just one of those things that's nurturing, right? The all the other fertilizers that comes into the root to let the tree blossom. So yeah, I guess that's it from my side. Thank you everyone. Thank you, Getika.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone. And thanks, definitely, Rachit, too, for all your background work. It's been really helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachit.